Yes. Right now we'd like to go to a phone interview with Steve Best. Steve Best is an award-winning writer, noted speaker, public intellectual, and seasoned activist. He has published 10 books, spoken in over a dozen countries, and was voted by Veg News one of the top 25 most fascinating vegetarians. Hi, Steve. Thank you so much for coming on Pure Imagination.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got started and just a little bit about yourself for people who may not know?
I think we should talk a little bit about us first. This is a real trip. Talking to you guys. I know your mom and dad from way back in Austin when I was getting my PhD in philosophy.
Yeah.
And I think you guys were just being born. I don't quite remember. But, it's been really fun to watch your whole family evolve and go from something just really kind of a basement garage, although we lived in an apartment complex together, quirky, kinky kind of funny stuff to, a real popular sensation, if you're like the 21st century postmodern, what was the name of that show, that family that played in a band? You remember that?
The Partridge Family?
Yeah, there you go. So
yeah.
You're like that. You guys are like that.
Definitely.
It's been a real ball to watch.
Yeah, so, and I hear stories about you all the time from my mother, just about all of the things that you're doing. It's so fascinating and inspiring.
Thanks.
If you could tell our listeners a little bit about what you do and what got you started in activism, and you're a teacher as well, and everything that you're up to.
Sure. Well, to go back to those days, I was already vegetarian. I guess my story starts around 1980 when I went to a university. I'm a late bloomer. I got into a lot of trouble in high school. I never finished, and worked a lot of jobs and stuff. I decided to go back to school around age 21 and got a degree in film theater and philosophy. And I went to University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana.
Mm-hmm.
And on that campus, I got politicized, as people tend to do on universities, and became a human rights activist. I started working in the anti-apartheid movement. Central American politics was real hot about 1980. Ronald Reagan was president, and fascist juntas were being installed throughout Central America at U.S. taxpayers' expense. And I got real involved in that. And a couple of years after that, I'm still an undergraduate, I had a religious epiphany of some kind or another one night at a Chicago White Castle restaurant. It must have been 2 in the morning. I was probably half drunk at least. And I was biting into a double cheeseburger. For some reason, a double. But that was the most important cheeseburger in the world to me, because that changed my life. It was so gross, so over the top, so excessive, and I just saw blood, gore, and guts. I saw for the first time not a food, but an animal, something that didn't come from a store but from a slaughterhouse. And I put it down. I couldn't eat it again. Mind you, I'm a standard carnivore. I was, hardcore carnivore like most people in this unfortunate country. And that changed me, and I couldn't shake it. I couldn't get rid of it. I didn't want that consciousness. I don't know where it came from. I had no exposure to anything. And I became a vegetarian, and around 1987, I read Peter Singer's book, Animal Liberation. And me, like so many other people, that book changed my life. Was just a vegetarian for health reasons. I didn't understand really the ethical implications of what I didn't understand really the true face of human evil until I looked at what we did to animals in vivisection laboratories, factory farms, slaughterhouses, etc. And that book really shook my world hard. And I decided at that point that I was going to retool my activism and become an animal rights activist. And I got a job teaching in El Paso. I came from Austin, El Paso, in 1993. Unlike most people who get more conservative as they age, I got more radical. I went from vegetarianism to veganism to like animal welfare to animal rights, and then to animal liberation, and then I started speaking out in a really hardcore way for animal liberation by any means necessary. And looks like my message isn't too popular with police and cops and vivisectors and the butchers of the world.
Can you explain to us the difference between...
An interesting journey.
Yeah, of course.
Go ahead.
Can you explain to us the difference between animal rights and animal liberation?
Sure. It's a little complicated. I think most people use these terms interchangeably. Mm-hmm. But animal liberation, actually Peter Singer's book was called Animal Liberation, but it had nothing to do with animal liberation. There's yet another thing, animal welfare, which means we're only interested in reducing the suffering of animals, not abolishing the institutions of oppression themselves, but managing it to make it as humane, quote unquote, as possible.
So that's animal welfare?
Yeah, that's animal welfare. So that's the first position. Animal rights, to get to the question you asked, is quite different because animal rights is abolitionist. It says that animals have basic rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, if you will. I think that fits very well for them, too. And that means that we don't regulate or modify these institutions of oppression. We abolish them because their first right is to their own body, to their freedom, to their own decisions, to their will. And none of the ways in which we enslave animals is compatible with rights. Now, rights, of course, is something humans decide to give out, who has them, and how far we extend this. And based on moral argumentation and philosophical development and social moral evolution, we've decided, I think, the enlightened people of this world, that animals should have rights. If we have rights, they do too, because the most important thing is suffering, and no one should be injured or killed against their will, and then we're equal in our rights to suffer, human and non-human animals. So the animal rights position articulates that idea, and it's abolitionist, and it's very radical. Mm-hmm. If it were put into place, a slavery economy. This world economy is based upon pharmaceutical industries and the meat and dairy and egg industries, et cetera. And these are massive contributors to capital throughout the world. So animal rights is absolutely subversive and would, if implemented overnight, which is not likely, it would have radical effects. Now, animal rights is a legal position. It's a mainstream position, even though it's pretty radical. Most animal rights, or almost all animal rights activists, try to work through legal and educational channels. Very few counsel illegal actions or the underground movement, like the Animal Liberation Front, which is a movement that works to smash into laboratories, free animals, to destroy property, all to inflict as much damage as possible on exploiters and to free as many animals as possible. So that gets you into the liberation. Liberation maybe builds on rights. Certainly we don't think in the liberation movement that anyone has any rights to hold animals as property, and animals have a right to be free. So it's based on that, but liberation has a more militant tone than rights. When we talk about animal rights or animal liberation, you're talking about a group of people, or rights people, who might only support legal tactics, and liberation people are going to say, yeah, I go for the Animal Liberation Front too. And the rights people might say, well, that's number one, violent, and number two, counterproductive, and they have various arguments against that, all of which I think are very weak. But the liberation really has these more radical overtones to it, and it shows that we're going to take direct action. That's another important part. The rights movement works through the state. That's indirect action. We appeal to legislators to make laws to abolish these industries that are so important to their corporate masters? Not very likely. So the liberation movement is direct action. It goes directly at the oppressors, at the exploiters, at the vivisectors. It will go to a mink farm and open the cages. It will go to a vivisection laboratory and smash doors and go through electronic security systems and free animals and take them out. It will burn down research institutions, but they are very careful to make sure, of course, there are not only no non-human animals, but no human animals in there. They're nonviolent in that sense. And so they take direct action. They don't believe in the state. The state is not going to liberate animals. The state is part of the problem, not the solution. The state is owned and controlled by capital, and capital needs the enslavement system to function. So any logical thinking person would know that we're not going to win this battle by going to the state. We're going to win it by converting as many people to be vegan as possible, liberating as many animals as possible, and really trying to shut down this massive cancer on the whole face of the earth, which is agribusiness or global factory farming.
So I have a lot of thoughts. First of all, I'm thinking about animal welfare and how it's kind of more about not ending suffering but just lessening it. And I'm wondering, do you think that that's a step that people should take into being full animal rights activists who believe in the full abolition? Or also, what do you think is the most likely to happen? Do you think that people would become involved in animal welfare and then abolitionists, or I guess the quickest way to get the fastest results?
That's a good question. It's certainly complicated, and it's very
sorry about that one.
That's why you ask. I know philosophers should be able to answer these things, but it's very controversial in the movement. I don't think there's any hard and fast rule for it. I gave you a very quick overview of my evolution, and you could see it was step by step.
Mm-hmm.
It really began with welfare, then rights, and then the liberation. And most people never get to the liberation point. But, really, my position is beyond that to total, what I call total revolution. Just absolute revolution, liberation of everything. So, but, I came into it through the welfare position. So I'm one example of someone who, climbed up the ladder to, higher and higher positions and broader vision. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people get stuck at the welfare position. And the welfare position is problematic because, for instance, your standard welfare person will be in your local neighborhood or city helping rescue cats and dogs. And they eat meat, and they may go to the circus or the rodeo, and they may support pharmaceutical industries and so-called medical science. And they don't really get it beyond the cat and dog issue. And if they broaden their horizons to factory farming, and let's say they might even become vegetarians, they may say, well, we want to promote humane water, and we want to reform this institution. We really want to abolish we really want to abolish it, some might say, but we can't do that overnight, and so we better start with these reforms. And so we'll do it slowly and chip away at it until finally animals are free. Well, that makes a kind of sense, but the problem is that once you start doing these legal reforms, you get trapped in the system. You start asking for bigger cages, and you get your bigger cages, and you pretty much, that's it. You got what you asked for. Go away. The state doesn't enforce whatever laws they pass at all, and so the laws really mean nothing. And the industries like the HSUS, Humane Society of the United States, and PETA, they promote humane meat and humane slaughter. And what this does is it gives the industry good PR. It sometimes raises their profit levels. And what's happening, it's really disturbing in the last 5, 6, 7 years or so, a lot of people are going back to eating meat because now it's humane. And thanks to so-called animal advocacy groups, we have humane killing and humane meat, and they're what I call collaborationists, the mainstream organizations. They collaborate with the industries. They are part of the system. They're not antithetical to it. Everyone thinks, oh, PETA is so radical. PETA is part of the system. They just give good PR to the slaughterhouse industry. So, you see, the problem with the welfareism is that you can never get past it, and so the animals never get freed. And it's just longer chains and bigger cages and less beatings and less torture. But what's important to recognize is that institutionalization itself, however big your cage, however long your chains, however frequently or less frequently you're beaten, you are held against your will. You're not in your natural habitat. You're not with your family and your biological species. You are not free. You are not happy. You are oppressed. You are a slave. And finally, one day you will be murdered, and you will be murdered violently. Welfare can never get past that. So clearly we've got to get past welfare into rights. And some people who start with welfare do. Some people who start with welfare think that eventually welfare reforms will turn into rights reforms. I find that a little hard to believe. So I encourage people to kind of like jump steps if they can, if their consciousness is advanced enough. I had to fumble around like most people. You fumble around, you figure it out. You go down blind alleys, and then you see the light again, and you go another way and you see a bigger picture. So if people can go straight into rights, they should. If they can go straight into vegan. But a lot of people, they take the step by step, but they don't get quite to the next step. So the system remains.
Yeah. And do you think there's any way that animals can be fully freed without the economy completely crashing? Or what do you think is the best way to go about doing it, personally?
Well, a couple minds about that. Capitalist economy is based on profits. Mm-hmm. And the accumulation of wealth, private property, profits. And in one sense, it doesn't really matter what object, whatever accumulates profit and wealth and power for capitalists. So on the one hand, maybe animals aren't really necessary for that, and they can find alternative markets. But the problem is the way that the economy is structured today and the way people's lifestyles are today. Pharmaceutical industries are huge. And, of course, the agribusiness, meat, dairy, egg industry is huge. And so these are vast capitalist markets, so there's nothing to replace them in terms of their profit potential. So they're not going to be replaced. So capitalism will, by its nature, continue to exploit animals as vastly and great in numbers as it possibly can. It doesn't care. It only cares about the money. So I don't think that we can have animal liberation within a capitalist society. Some people do believe that. I think that's an illusion. I don't think we can have any ecological society in capitalist society because it's a grow or die system. That means it has to keep accumulating, extracting resources, pushing habitats down with bulldozers, destroying ecological systems everywhere. It's an inherently destructive, growth-oriented system. It's bringing the whole planet down, and it will bring it down plank by plank until everything is dead. And then we finally wake up and realize, oh my God, capitalism was inherently unsustainable. So if it can't be an ecological society, it certainly is antithetical to the interests of animals, because animals need habitats and they need clean ecosystems like we do. So really the bigger picture is this whole social system, this global world system, has to change, and that's a part of what the occupation movement has been. Mm-hmm. We're just seeing that the system has got to change. So really it's even bigger than animal liberation. And it's total liberation. We've got to end all hierarchical systems, all power systems, all dominator cultures that we've lived in for actually 10,000 years. Since the beginning of agricultural society, we've lived in dominator cultures. All we've known for 10,000 years is power, domination, growth, expansion, death, destruction, and now we're reaching the end of this, the end game. I just read a story in the Washington Post today that said scientists now say that we really are past the tipping point of runaway climate change, and just brace yourself. Brace yourself.
Wow. Well, we're running.
The future is not a question of whether the future will be good or bad. It's going to be bad. No matter what we do now. Yeah. The question is, will it be bad or horrific or catastrophic or just, like the total dystopian nightmare world, Mad Max world, or will it just everything crash and it'll just be a mass extinction crisis? And by the way, we're in the 6th extinction crisis in the history of the planet right now. You know when the last one was? When? 65 million years ago. Yep. When the dinosaurs were wiped out and a meteor crashed into the Yucatan off the Gulf of Mexico. 65 million years ago was the last great species extinction crisis, and there have been 5 before the one we're in now. They're all caused by natural events. This one we caused. We have wiped out the forest and the habitats, and we are killing the animals for killing tigers, for erection dysfunction medicines, and we're killing chimpanzees and gorillas for bushmeat, and we're just consuming and killing everything. And so, we ourselves are going to die. I think that's pretty sure. I've come around to the opinion that we're a failed species. We're not going to make it. I really doubt that. I mean, I'm not going to give up my struggle, but I don't think we're going to make it because we're not adapting to the changing conditions. I mean, it's do or die right now. This isn't the 8th century BC.
Yeah.
This is the 21st century. This is the world of advanced crisis, and no one is responding, not adequately enough.
Yeah. Well, Steve, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we're running out of time, sadly, but we'd love to have you on in the future if that's possible.
It's been a pleasure.
More about...
Hope to meet you, maybe in Europe sometime.
Yes, definitely.
Everything you say is really,
care.
really great.
Yeah, so inspiring.
Say hi to Mom and Dad.